All right, let's talk about one of the most legendary stories in all of history. You know the one. Hannibal, the brilliant general, marching his army and his war elephants right over the Alps to take on Rome. I mean, it sounds like pure fantasy, right? But it actually happened. And the real story, well, it's even wilder than you think.
So, picture this. It's 218 BCE. The Second Punic War is kicking off. And Rome? Rome feels untouchable. They've got the sea on one side and this massive, impossible wall of mountains, the Alps, on the other. Nobody in their right mind would ever try to march an army over those things. Nobody, except for a guy named Hannibal Barca.
And we're not talking about just any old army here. This was a force of tens of thousands of soldiers, thousands of horses, and yeah, the stars of the show, his war elephants. His plan was pure genius and pure insanity all at once. Do the one thing the Romans would never expect. Just show up on their doorstep.
But here's the thing. For literally centuries, a huge part of this story has been a total mystery. Like, where did he actually cross? And what were these elephants really like? The answers to those questions, well, they change absolutely everything. And as we're about to see, the reality is, quite literally, bigger than we ever imagined.
So, first up, let's talk about the route. For historians, trying to find Hannibal's exact path has been this epic detective story. We're talking about piecing together clues that are over 2,000 years old, scattered across some of the most dangerous terrain you can imagine.
What's really cool is that we basically have two main witnesses from the ancient world. You've got Polybius. He was a soldier, a historian who actually went there, crossed the Alps himself, and even talked to guys who fought in the campaign. He gets the military side of things. Then you've got Livy, a Roman historian, gives us this incredibly rich, almost day-by-day account of the march. He's the storyteller.
And here's where it gets interesting. Even though they had totally different styles, both of our ancient sources, Polybius and Livy, they agree on 5 absolutely crucial details about the pass. It had to be big enough for a massive camp, have a certain kind of gorge, face north, and have this really specific kind of descent. Super steep at first, then more gradual. These 5 things, they're the key to cracking the case.
So, armed with this checklist, historians went to work, testing the 6 most likely passes in the Alps, and you can see right here how it played out. Most of them get 1 or 2 things right, but then they fail somewhere else. You see the Col du Petit Saint Bernard? It gets so close, but it's missing that crucial long 50-kilometer gentle slope for the army to get down safely. But then, look at that. One pass, it nails every single one.
Yep, all the evidence points right here, the Col du Mont Genèvre. It's the lowest major pass, and it's the only one that perfectly matches all 5 clues from the ancient texts. So mystery number 1? Solved. But believe me, that's only half the story.
Okay, now that we know the where, we can finally talk about the who, or maybe the what. Let's get to the most iconic part of this entire saga, the elephants themselves.
We know from the records that 27 elephants survived that brutal crossing and made it into Italy. These weren't just a gimmick. They were a core part of a battle-hardened force. They were survivors. They were warriors.
But let me ask you a question. When you hear Asian elephant, what do you picture? Probably something a little smaller, a little more docile than its big African cousin, right? We think of Hannibal's elephants as amazing, for sure, but maybe not truly gigantic? Well, what if that entire picture is just wrong? This is where modern biology steps in and completely shatters our perception, revealing a mind-blowing truth about the giants of the past and the giants that are still around today. It really boils down to this fascinating idea called shifting baseline syndrome. Basically, it just means that our idea of what's normal has shrunk over time. For centuries, humans have targeted the biggest elephants with the most massive tusks. We've been taking the giant genes out of the pool. So just imagine the average size of the elephants Hannibal had from a wild population before 2,000 years of that pressure.
And if you want a perfect visual of this, look no further. This is the London Ivory House during the peak of the ivory trade. For generation after generation, the biggest, strongest animals were hunted down. It's something scientists call human-made reverse selection. We literally made the species smaller in our own minds.
But here's the thing. Those genes for being enormous, they're still out there. In fact, scientists just confirmed a new world record for the longest Asian elephant tusk ever recorded. It belongs to an elephant known as Raja the Great, and it measured an absolutely staggering 3.26 meters.
And what about thickness? We've got another new world record, this time from a living tusker in India named Manasari Rajendran. His tusks, at the lip, have a circumference of 58 centimeters. I mean, those are just monstrous proportions.
Now check this out, because this is where our whole perception gets flipped upside down. We all think of woolly mammoths as the undisputed champs of big tusks. But look, at 3.3 meters, the Asian elephant is right on the heels of the African elephant's 3.5, and it is absolutely in the same league as many mammoths. They were true contenders.
On the left, you see a modern giant. On the right, that's the skeleton of the Bilkondi tusker from back in 1870. The sheer scale of these animals, then and now, it's just breathtaking. And these aren't freaks of nature. They represent the true, awesome potential of the entire species.
And their bodies were just as huge. The record shoulder height for an Asian elephant is 3.35 meters. That is 11 feet tall at the shoulder, a record shared by that old Belkandi tusker and another legendary bull, Raja Gaj. Okay, just let that sink in for a moment. The largest Asian elephants were as tall and as powerfully built as the biggest woolly mammoths to ever roam across Europe. Hannibal's elephants weren't just elephants, they were megafauna. They were basically mammoths.
So let's put our two stories together now. We've got the path, the Col du Mont Genève, and we have the true size of the animals who walked that path. So how does that change how we see Hannibal's incredible journey?
Remember Libby's play-by-play of the march? Take a look at days 13 through 15. The army spent 3 whole days building a road down a landslide on a slick, snowy mountain. Now picture that again. They weren't just clearing some rocks. They were engineering a road strong enough to hold multiple 7-ton animals that were as massive as mammoths. This completely transforms how we should see these elephants. They weren't just some exotic cargo being dragged over a mountain. They were co-conquerors. Their incredible size made the crossing 1,000 times harder, but the fact that they survived is what made the achievement so legendary. So the next time you hear one of these famous stories from the ancient world, just ask yourself, what part of the story have we forgotten? Thanks to things like shifting baselines, what other giants, literal or not, are just waiting in the pages of history for us to find them all over again?